thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up. Yeah, can you all hear me? Perfect. Right. So, a bit chaotic at the moment. I can say about work, it's a little bit bonkers. We've got 2 Red Robin's birthday going on, which is continuing right throughout the week. So keep an eye out for deals and promotions and all that kind of thing. I know that there's a lot going on in Create and Craft, but we're also doing stuff on our website, which is good. I have got a new digital Craftorium USB launching on Friday, which I'll tell you a little bit about later on. And what we're going to do in Canvas Workspace today will kind of lead into that a little bit, but I am filming education for the digital Craftorium USB as well, because it's important that every time we bring something out, I teach you something, so that's good. So a couple of things that I want to do, first of all, is we have some of our Craftmaster A4 card on a special offer for you guys tonight. So they're quite masculine colours. This one you could get away for Christmas as well, I think. And at the end of, no, hang on, bear with, I've got so many dates in my head. I think middle of June, we're doing a masculine USB with digital Craftorium. So I thought that these would be a fabulous colour palette to work with them. First question I asked is, are they solid core? Yes, they are, which is great. So that means that you're not going to get that horrible white edge. And they're slightly textured. It's a really nice cardstock, actually, for using on your ScanNCut. And if you buy one, you get one free. So you have to buy the rustic, you'll get the mellow free, or vice versa. If you want 2 rustic, you'll have to pay for both. So think about that. But it's lovely to have the blues, greens and reds quite muted, so quite grey in here, and then a deeper colour of it as well. So yeah, really good. That finishes on the 4th of June at midnight. I can't believe we're nearly at the end of May. I actually looked, I'd just been online to book my hotel for the weekend, and I was like, 25th to the 28th, is that right? And then I was like, oh gosh, where did May go? I don't know. Right, so a couple of things we're going to do today. First of all is I've been asked by a couple of people to show you how to make a triple aperture in the middle of a DL card. So that's what we're going to do first of all, and how we line it all up, etc. And then I'm going to take you into Canvas Workspace and show you how quick and easy it is to make your own stencil or a cutting file, which is fab. So every time, because I don't have pictures in my head, as you all know, every time I come to do something on ScanNCut, I have to draw it out so that I can actually see where I'm heading. And I think it's a really good habit to get into. So I am just going to draw a rectangle here. And I've Googled it. Did what Alice tells me. Google it, Nana. I Googled it, and apparently a DL card is 99mm wide. Trust it to be an awkward number. By 210mm high. Okay, so we've got that. And what some of you want to know is, how do you put a triple aperture like that in the middle of there and get them all even? So that's what we're going to do. So the first thing we need to think about is, how big are the circles going to be? That is crucial, because until you know that, you can't work out the maths. So let's say that each one of these circles is going to be, let's do 55mm. Okay, so 55, 55, and 55. Mary draws everything out as well, so I'm in good company. I can't see it without doing it. It's weird, isn't it? So that all comes to 165mm. So the 3 times circles are going to equal 165mm. So if we take that away from the 210, so we want 210 minus 165 is 45mm. Okay. Now, when we're putting things into a position, we need to think about the gaps in between. So you're going to have a gap here, you're going to have a gap there, a gap there, and a gap there. And the key is making sure that all those 4 gaps are the same, because if the distance between the circles is even, the circles will be in the correct place. So we need 4 spaces, and we've got 45mm. So 45 divided by 4 is 11 point whatever. So we're going to go with 11 millimeters, okay, for each one. We can always drop the card down by 1 mil if we need to, but we've got 11 millimeters. So I know that from here to here is going to be 11. And from there to there is going to be 11. And from there to there is going to be 11. And from there to there is going to be 11. So I've now got my guide. Okay, so now what we need to do is make it happen on the screen on our machine. So the first thing we're going to do is go to our ScanNCut. Doesn't matter which model you've got, it's the same for both of them. It works in exactly the same way, as will the canvas stuff. So if we go into our patterns, first of all, and go into our basic shapes, I'm just going to select the square because I'm going to separate the height and the width anyway to make it into a rectangle. So I might as well just use a square. I'm going to unlock the aspect ratio on this screen here, and I'm going to make it 210 millimeters high. I love working stuff out like this. It's amazing. But I have to say my brain is a bit tired today. And 99 millimeters wide. So we're going to set that onto the mat. It doesn't matter. This could be a square card. It could be a 5x7 card. Once you've got that size and you've worked out what size you want your shape to be, because it could be any shape, then you can go ahead and start to work with it. Right, so we want to add, and we want to go back into our pattern and back into our basic shapes and down to page 3 and pick up our circle. And we're going to make that 55 millimeters because that's what we decided, and we want 3 of them. So now I've got my whole mat all ready and set up to go. So the first thing that I'm going to do is work with this one and the rectangle. So first things first, we're going to go to edit and we're going to multiple select part of the mat because we don't want these 2 circles involved yet. So I'm going to drag that over the edge like that. As soon as you drag over something, a shape, and it can be anywhere on the mat, as soon as it can't see it, it ignores it. So as long as it can't see the full shape, so you don't need to drag right over the circles like that. You can literally just go over the edge like that. And as soon as you eliminate that complete shape, it ignores it. So we've now got our circle and our rectangle just highlighted. So this is the easy one. So we're going to go to our directional arrows and up to a line. And we're going to remember that when we use our alignment, wherever the straight line is within these boxes is where it will align it to. So left, right, top, bottom, center and middle. So I'm going to line it centrally vertically and then centrally horizontally, and then I'm going to press OK. So now I know that that circle is bang in the middle of that rectangle. So the next thing to do is to group it together, because if I don't group it, when I come to line these, this one will move. So we go to Object, Edit and Group. Okay, so we've now got our circle in the middle. So now what we're going to do is work with this one. So this time we're going to do the same thing. We're going to multiple select part of the mat, drag over that excess circle, press OK, and this time we're going to align it centrally vertically. So I know that it's right in the center, if you like, centrally vertically, but I'm going to align it to the top this time. Now, if you remember when we first started doing these classes, I can't remember which class it was, but I told you that every nudge with the directional arrows on an SDX is 0.5 millimeter, okay? So we want to bring that circle down by 11 millimeters. So we're going to drop it down 22 spaces. And that's how you work it out. Without that information, this would be really difficult because you wouldn't know the distance. So you'd be doing it by eye. But just because one day I cut loads of stuff out and worked out how many nudges it is, how big the nudge is, then it makes life a whole lot easier. So once we've done that, we're going to tap the screen, or we're going to press OK, and then we're going to tap the screen to release the shapes. Now, right now, it sees that rectangle with that circle group sat on top of that other circle. So if I press OK and use my select arrows, I can now get to that circle. If I just try and tap on that circle, I can't get to it because the rectangle's on top. So we're going to go and find that circle again. So all I'm going to do now is move that down 22 spaces, which will give me my 11 millimeters. So I'm going to nudge this down. I can hear you all counting along in your head with me. Right, so now let's group that. So we're going to multiple select part of the mat. We're going to drag over that extra circle. We're going to press OK, and we're going to go to Object, Edit, and group it together. So now I've got two, and the distance between there and there is even, okay? So last one now. So this time we're going to multiple select, but we're going to select all the mat. So we select everything and we press OK. We're then going to use our directional arrow buttons, go to our alignment function again. We're going to align it centrally vertically, but this time we're going to align it to the bottom. So we're going to press OK. We're going to tap the screen to release the shapes. We're going to press OK again, and we're going to use our select arrows to hit that bottom circle. Then we're going to go to our directional arrows and we're going to move it up 22. There we go. So now we're going to press multiple select, everything on the mat, press OK, go to Object, Edit, and group it together. And now you've got your piece for your aperture. So how do we put that in the front of a card? So we worked out, didn't we, that it was 99 millimeters wide by 210. So what we need to do now is double the width, but keep the height as it is, because this one is going to be our front, and then we want another 99 by 210 on the side. So what we need is 198 by 210. So 198 high by 210 wide. So we're going to press OK, and we're going to add, and we're going to go back into our patterns and back into our basic shapes. We're going to hit the square again, and we're going to set it on the mat this time, because if I make it bigger, it might not fit it on. Then I'll have to make it smaller again to put it on the mat. So I thought, well, I'll just do it right now. So we're going to edit this. We're going to go into Object, Edit, and Resize. We're going to separate the height and the width by unlocking the aspect ratio. And we're going to make it 210 high, because that's staying exactly the same. And we're going to make it 198 wide. There we go. So we've now got, this is now our card base now. So what we need to do is put this on the right hand side. Okay, so what we're going to do is press OK and OK again, and then we're going to multiple select everything on the mat and press OK. We're then going to go to our directional arrow buttons, and we're going to go to our alignment function, and we're going to align it to the top and to the right. So now what it's done is it's moved that card blank over, so that I've now got those apertures in the front of the card. Now at this point, if you want to, you could use that whole file now, drop the pressure and your blade depth down. So put half cut on your machine when you're cutting, and drop the cut pressure down to about -3. It will depend on A, how old your blade is, and B, the thickness of card that you're using. But if you do that first, what it will do is it will go around, it'll do the bigger rectangle, it'll do the tall, slim rectangle, it'll put score lines with all the circles. But this line on the left-hand side of your rectangle with your apertures in will be the center. So it will create that center fold line for you. If you don't want to do that, there's a different way of doing it. So the first thing we need to do, if you're not going to use that rectangle to score, is undo all this that we've done. So we're going to go to Object, Edit, and we're going to ungroup. So we're ungrouping that circle from this rectangle. We then tap the screen. It's then gone to the next rectangle with the circle. So we're going to ungroup that one and tap the screen. And then we're going to ungroup the last one and tap the screen. And just to make sure that you've done everything, if you use your select arrows here and go through, so that's the card base, the first aperture, top aperture, middle, oh, that was your box, your guide box to line it up, and then also your center circle. So at this point, what you will do is delete off that rectangle. And now you've got your 3 circles bang in the middle, all evenly distributed in the front of your card. So what we're going to do now is multiple select everything on the mat, press OK, go to Object, Edit, and group this together. And remember, once you've done this once, you don't need to do it again, even if you wanted to make the circles smaller. So let me just ungroup it and show you. So if I want to make the circles smaller, I'm going to make sure one of the circles is selected, and then I'm going to multiple select part of the mat. I'm going to drag this over the edge of my card shape. I'm going to press OK, and then I'm going to group those circles together. So Object, Edit, and Group. And then I can just make those smaller if I want to, like that. So if you want smaller apertures or larger apertures, you can do that as well. So it's not changing the position because it scales it down from the corners. It doesn't go from one corner and drop back up to the top. It scales it down evenly. So that's another way that you can do that. So let's just presume that we don't want to do that. Let's undo that and take it back. That undo button, just so that you know, will go back up to 10 steps. But it won't undo a group and it won't undo a weld. So if you're doing something and you're tapping the screen to enlarge it like that, it'll only do 10 spaces backwards. If you keep it pressed when you're resizing something like I did, when you go back, one undo will bring it back to where it was before. So multiple select everything on the mat and press OK. We're going to go to Object, Edit, and Group that. And then if you wanted to, you could add a perforation line in. So we're going to add, if you prefer to use a score line, you might as well just use the rectangle that we originally put the apertures in and score the whole thing. There's not much point not doing that because it's not going to damage anything. It's just going to make sure that everything's marked out for you and that center line is perfect. But if you don't want to do that, you can go into your patterns and into your borders and you can scroll down to the bottom and then come back up a few steps and you'll find a perforation line. So we're going to set that onto the mat. We're going to rotate it first of all, so it's the correct orientation. So Object, Edit, and Rotate 90 degrees. Remember our card was 210, so I'm going to make this 206 because you never take a perforation line right to the edge, because if you do, it perforates, which is what it's meant to do. So I'm going to make this 206, like so. I'm going to press OK, and then I'm going to multiple select everything on the mat and press OK. Go to my directional arrow buttons again. You can see how repetitive ScanNCut is. So once you know where everything is, it's really repetitive. So now I can group that together. So while I've got that selected, I'm going to group it. So now I've got my DL card with the perforation line down and my 3 apertures in the correct position. Now, if you just wanted 2 apertures, I would actually put the 3rd one in the middle and then delete it off after, because then you know that they're evenly distributed from the top and the bottom. It depends how you want to work it, but this is a really simple way of just creating that triple aperture. And it could be that one's a square, one's a circle, one's an oval. As long as that gap, that distance in between those shapes is the same, it's really super simple to do. So that's your homework for next week, or next month, should I say. I do get a few emails saying, I've done my homework today, Mel. I'm like, yes. Okay, so that's how you create a triple aperture on your ScanNCut. Okay, right, Canvas Workspace next. So this is fun. This is where Canvas really starts to become fun. So let me just get my computer up and working, because it looks at me and just goes no sometimes. So I want to talk to you about one button in particular, which is called Divide. And you'll have probably heard me talk about Divide a lot because I use it all the time. let me just draw this out for you again so that you can see what I'm doing. So, for example, if we bring on a circle like this, and we have another circle inside it, at the point of it being designed, the graphic designers can do something called compounding, okay? And what compounding does is it makes this shape into a frame. So it punches this circle through this circle and leaves you with the frame. If you've got a detail pattern, so something like a stencil, so let's say we've done a diamond stencil, forgive my drawing because it's proper bad, although to be fair I'm not really trying very hard because it's just a scribble. I have books and books and books and books and books of scribbles like this, like literally books. I said to my husband at the weekend, we need to get a skip, and he just looked at me and he just looked at me and laughed. I went, what? He said, I think you need about a dozen skips. I was like, well, yep, true. So let's say you've got this. If the designer compounds those, what they call paths, shapes, lines, then when you take it into Canvas Workspace, because it sees it as one shape, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, not 15 shapes, it sees it as one, you can't then ungroup it and get to this design. So what I get our graphic designers to do is leave it so that it's not compounded. Okay, so what the ScanNCut then sees is that rectangle with all those diamonds sat on top. But it does mean that when you send it into Canvas Workspace, you can ungroup it and you can start to use these diamonds. So you might just want to create a design that's like that. So you might just want to have a border down the side of your card that's cutting into your cardstock that just does that. So instead of you having to design that, you can pull it from the center of here. So the creativity, the difference between compounding and not compounding, increases the creativity by thousands because you can do so much more. You think about some of the stencils that we bring you could just take one little part of it and make it into a whole stencil. And I'd never really done a lot of stenciling, well, apart from in the 90s, where if you stood still in my house, you got stenciled, because it was a thing, wasn't it? Late 80s, early 90s, everything was being stenciled. But for my crafting, I'd never really done it. And then during lockdown, I'm just going to bring these in and show you, because this is relevant to what we're doing on Friday, kind of. During lockdown, we obviously did a lot more shows and a lot more product development than we ever did because we were the direct supply chain to Create and Craft at iHub. So I came up with a concept where we had stencils cut out of Mylar, and it started, for example, let me see if I can find you this one's a good one to show you. So it started with Lauren designing this orchid, okay? And she did the whole thing as one stencil. And I stenciled it, but I used structure paste. So I put my stencil down, pasted through it, and then lifted it off vertically. So you got that rise in the paste. So if I just tip this here, Andrew might be able to get in really close and have a look at this, because this is the first level of that paste. Okay, so this is quite, it's not flat, but it's slightly raised. If I then show you from the side, let me see if I can do it that way, maybe, that's better. So you can now see how some areas are thicker than the others. So what we did was we pasted the whole first stencil, lifted it off, let it dry. Then we put the first stencil back in place. So that first stencil came to the level of the paste that we'd pasted, and then we put the second stencil on top. But on the second stencil, it just had certain parts of the orchid. So when you pasted it, it became dimensional, but it had dimension in different layers. And if I just bring this one, and this is probably a good one for you to see. So this is quite shallow here, and then it gets thicker here and really thick here. So this was something that we did during lockdown. And then loads of stuff happened and life got busy and we never really got to carry on from that. So stenciling then became a bit of a thing for me because I was like, I really like that look and it's really different. And we will be doing some more of this. But the problem was we had to have the stencils cut because the thickness of Mylar that is perfect for the ScanNCut is too thin for that. For paste, you're not going to be able to lift it and get that depth of field. So I then sat down and thought, right, you know what, why don't we do stencils that you can do with ink and paint? So flat stencils, but layered with the detail, etc., etc., like we did with this. So that's kind of what we're doing on Friday. But I also wanted to show you how you can make your own stencil because this is super cool. Linda's asked where the perforation line is from the last one, just before we go into that. It's in patterns, Linda, and then you go into your borders category here. So you go into borders, go right down to the bottom with your double arrow, and then come back up 1, 2, 3 pages, and it's BO for border, B002. That's the one that I use. So you'll find that on your SDX. Right, so let's go into Canvas Workspace. Don't be scared, because I was terrified of it at the beginning. Now I love it. And I've learnt something really cool, which I'm going to do in the education for the Digital Craftorium, because I was like, oh, this is another game changer. And Lauren taught me, which is fabulous, because when I'm working with a graphic designer, she said to me, why don't you just press shift and do this? And I went, do what? And she's like, just press shift and then you can click. Sorry, I can do what? No, brilliant. So you'll see that when you watch the education for the Digital Craftorium. Super cool. Right, so let's bring in some basic shapes. So let's have a scalloped square. Let's have a plain circle. And let's have a heart. Right, so I've got 3 shapes. So I've got my 3 shapes here, okay? So all the basic shapes that are in your ScanNCut, not all the shapes, but all the basic shapes are in Canvas Workspace. So let's start by making this one a little bit smaller. So you can either go into the properties here, and when you click on that, it will tell you how big it is. This is always the height, and this is the width. So height always becomes before the width. The degree of rotation you've got here, etc., etc. So I'm just going to ignore that and I'm just going to drag this like that. So we'll start with that about there, and then we'll make the heart a little bit smaller, and I'm not worrying about sizes yet because I'm going to work on that as I go through. And then I'm going to make the circle a similar kind of size. So we'll go down there like that. Right, so what I want to do now is create a frame of all of these. So if we click on this and we go to edit, we're going to use our offset line. So creating an offset line, this is like creating a matten layer. So you can create an outward matten layer or an inward matten layer. So we're going to create an offset line. You can do this on your ScanNCut, on your SDX, but at some point you still have to send it into Canvas. So it's as easy to do it in here and then send it to your machine. So I'm going to do a 4mm inward offset line, and I'm going to leave the original as it is because I want both of them. And the reason that I start with 4mm is when we start to make them smaller, we don't want the line to go too thin. So I'm going to make it a little bit thicker to start with so that I've got a little bit of leeway. So I'm going to press OK, and that's now put that shape inside there. So let's do the same thing with the heart. So click on the heart, go up to the top to edit, go to offset and create a 4mm inward and keep the original as it is. So I've now got my heart. And then let's do exactly the same thing with the circle. So edit, go into here, and then press OK. Right, so I've now got all those. So now it sees the scallop square with another one sat on top of it, a circle with another one sat on top of it, and a heart with a heart sat on top of it. So it doesn't see it the way that we see it, so we need to make it see it. So this is how you can compound a path or a shape or divide a shape if that's what you want to do. So we can stop the machine, we can stop the ScanNCut and Canvas, seeing it as two shapes and make it one. So all we do to do that is drag a box across both of those shapes, go to Edit, and at the bottom you'll see a box called Process Overlap. You've got Weld in there, you've got Divide, you've got Remove Overlap, and then you've got Subtract. And this is why I like using the web app version, because when I hover over it, it tells me what it is. And there's also an undo button, which is just the best thing ever. So we're going to divide. So divide in my head sends a digital punch down and it punches that center shape out of the outside shape. So I'm going to grab that now and move it out of the way. So now this is one piece. Now, why do I need to do that? Well, the reason that I'm doing it is because eventually I'm going to build this up and we're going to weld all these three together. Now, when you're welding, each part of the shape has to overlap. So if I've got a square on the inside and a square on the outside, and I'm only overlapped over the inside one, it won't weld it, because it can't, because it's not all overlapped. By making this one shape, then you can weld them. So let's click on the circle. Let's do the same thing with that. So left click on your mouse, drag a box over both of them, go to Edit and divide that. And it doesn't look like anything's happened on your screen, but when you go to the middle, you can pull out that punched bit. And then let's do the same with the heart. So let's go to Edit and Divide, take the heart out of the way, and then I've got my three frames now. So I'm going to get rid of these three because I don't need those anymore, put those in the bin, and I've now got my three shapes. So let's start with this square. And let's put the circle inside the square because I'm just looking at sizing now. So I can see that that circle is more or less the same size as that square, and I want it to be slightly smaller. So I'm going to come out, and you can do this with all the different shapes, which is really fun. But I'm warning you, it's really addictive, and you will lose weeks of your life doing this because I do it on a regular basis. My husband actually said to me this weekend, he said, "Do you think you'll ever come home for a weekend and not work?" I was like, maybe, don't know. Because I got on Canvas Workspace and that was it, I was away. I said, "But it's fun." He's like, "I know it's fun, but Melanie." Like, yeah, I know. He is very good, to be fair. Right, so I've selected both the scallop square and the circle. I'm going to go to Edit and I'm going to align them. So just like we've been aligning on our machine, we can align in Canvas. So I'm going to align it centrally vertically, going to Edit again and centrally horizontally. So now I've got my circle over the top of my scallop square. I'm not going to do anything with it yet, but I'm just going to leave it there while I work on the heart. So I'm going to bring the heart into play and I'm going to make that a little bit smaller, and I'm going to put this in the middle. And it's great fun doing this because you never know what you're going to get. I remember one night during lockdown when we had the house in Peterborough and David was on air till late and he was coming back to the house to stay. And he said, well, I was sat there just on Canvas watching him on my iPad and playing with me, making stencils on my laptop. And he said, walked through the door, I went, "David, come and have a look at this. I've just made loads of stencils." I was squealing because it's so much fun and you never know quite what you're going to get until the end, which is super cool. Right, so I've now got my heart there. So I'm going to align all of these and then I know exactly what I'm looking at. So go to Edit and Align and Edit in the middle. And don't worry about if you do anything wrong in Canvas Workspace because you've got that Edit. So you can undo, so you can go back and undo any mistakes, which I love. I just wish that was the case for like chocolate and cake and pizza, but it's not. Right, so I'm quite happy now. I can see that my heart there is overlapping at the bottom and I can see that the circle is overlapping the square. So let's see what we get now. So all I'm going to do is left click and drag across all of those pieces. Then I'm going to go to Edit and I'm going to weld it together. And it gives me that. How cool is that? Now, even if you just wanted that as a cutting file, you could make that bigger and that could be the background for your card. It could be your card base. You know, you could start with 2 of those outside edges with your square, and you could weld another one onto here now. So for example, that's 130 mil. So let me find that square again. See, this is what happens. I have all intentions of doing something and then it all changes because I get carried away. So let's make that 130 by going into properties. And because I want to be precise now, I'm using my keyboard to type that in. Now, as long as that box is ticked, that will make sure that when I press the plus, it will make this the same. It'll scale the width up in the correct ratio to the height. So I'm going to do that. So now I could put that on there, weld those 2 together because this is divided. And if you're ever unsure, you can always go back and just go to edit and divide again. But there's nothing there, I don't think, unless it has done. Let's have a look. No, there's nothing there because I'd already divided those things. So now if I do this, grab both pieces and align it to the bottom. I know that that's in the correct place. I'm going to click on this. I'm just going to nudge that further back a little bit because I don't want too much of a join. And then when I drag a box around there and go to edit and weld, I've now got my card shape. Now, if I hadn't divided, it wouldn't have allowed me to do any of that because it wouldn't allow me to weld those 6 shapes. Once I've made those shapes 3 shapes, and I'm just doing my undo now so you can see how it works. Once I've done that bit, you can just start playing. So let's build this up now. So if I go to edit and just select it first of all, Melanie. So edit and duplicate. So I've got 2, and I'm going to do this quite big so that you can see what's going on. And I'm just going to zoom in a bit. So I'm going to zoom in. There we go, it's better. And I'm going to position this so that it's just touching the edge. So let me just nudge that over. There we go, so it's just touching. Then I'm going to drag a box around both of those and make sure that they are aligned either to the top and the bottom so I know they're straight. Then I'm going to click on this one. Oh, hello, that gives me all the points. I don't want that. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to just move that over. I'm going to go 6 spaces, okay? And then I'm going to drag both of those and go to edit and weld those 2 together. So now I've got a double layer. So I'm going to do the same thing again now. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to go to edit and I'm going to duplicate. And if any of you have watched the Quirky Bird shows, you'll see that you will have seen my art journal, and all the stencils that are in there I've made on my ScanNCut because I didn't want anyone to say, where did you get your stencil from? It's lovely, and then you're not be able to do it. So this is how I kind of made them. So now I'm going to go to edit and we're going to align this to the bottom so I know they're in the right place. Click off it, click on one of them and move that over. Now I know that it's going to be exactly the same because I've moved it the same amount of spaces. So if I drag those 2 and go to edit and group that, oh, don't want to group it, Melanie, you want to weld it. I've now got my first row. So now what I do is I do exactly the same thing, but we come down the page. So we go to edit and duplicate and just have a play around with this because it's really fun. It's like really, really fun. But it is very, very addictive, just so that you know. So I'm going to drag across both of those. I'm going to go to edit and I'm going to align it to the left or the right, doesn't matter. And then I'm going to click off, click back on that one and move that up 6. So I know, actually I think that needs 7, but I'm going to go back with 6 just because that's what I've done. So I'm going to go grab both of those, go to edit and weld that. Now don't forget, if once you've welded it, you think, oh, I'm not sure about that, you can absolutely undo it. So I've now got that. So let's do another one of that one. So let's go edit and duplicate. And it's just good fun. I would recommend definitely working on a laptop with a mouse. It's easier. I have a laptop with a touchpad and I'm constantly zooming in and zooming out without meaning to. So I'm going to go to edit, oh, bear with, edit and align to the left again. I'm going to tap off it and click back on it again, and we're going to go up. There we go. And then we're going to drag that there, go to edit and weld. It's thinking about it. It has a lot to think about, to be fair, because there's a lot of points on here. So if I now zoom back out of here, you can see that A, you've got a lovely cutting file, and then you can start to make this smaller. And the other thing that Canvas does, which is super cool, is if some of the parts have become too small, it will remove them before it's downloaded. So that's really good, because then you know that you're not going to damage your blade. Right, so I've now got my stencil here, but it's cutting out because I've got that outside edge. So to make it cut in, so use it as a stencil. So you've got this, which would be a fabulous cutting file. You could put like little letters LOVE inside each of the hearts. That would be really nice. And start thinking about doing things, you know, slightly differently than you're used to doing, because things like this just make it really cool. Right, so to make it into a stencil as such, we're going to make a box. We're going to take a square and we're going to drag it around here. And we're going to put this, I'm going to drag both of those, and I'm now going to divide this into this. So I'm going to punch this out of this square. So I'm going to go to edit and divide. And this will probably take it a few seconds to think about it, because, oh, it's done it. Brilliant. So now when I move this, I've got a frame that it can sit in, but also I've got that. So this is now my stencil. So if I drag a box and pick up all those pieces there and go to edit and group, I've now got a stencil that I can cut out of Mylar. So I've got a cutting file like that, which is perfect. I've got a frame if I want to put it back into the frame and mount it. So you could cut that a couple of times, or maybe cut it out of grey board and then put this back into the middle of that, which would be lovely. That'd be really nice in a box frame. But I've also got this. And when I'm cutting a stencil, I will kind of just put my Mylar on my mat and cut it with probably about an inch border all the way around, because you want something to either be able to put tape onto or use as an inking platform or paint. So I never put a close edge to my stencil, because then you risk going over the edge and it gets messy. So then you would cut that out of Mylar. Now, cutting Mylar, I am going to do this as a part of the education for Digital Craftorium, but we found a really good Mylar, and it will be on the shows over the weekend. I've got the Weekender, so we've got a sneak peek on Craft Extra at 2 p.m. on Friday, but the actual hours are 8 p.m. on Friday, 12 and 4 on Saturday, and 1 and 5 on Sunday. So I'm filming all the education for that tomorrow, which will be really cool. But we've got the Mylar, but when you're cutting Mylar, so because it's plastic, first of all, you need to make sure that your mat's really nice and sticky. So the first thing you would do is retack a mat and make sure that it's going to hold that plastic in place. You can do it in several cuts and build it up, but actually with the thickness of Mylar that we've got, which is 0.19 mil, it's nice and fine. So as long as you put your cutter mount, so when you go into your settings and you're cutting, when you get to select all and cut, let me show you, because it'll be easier to show you than it will be to tell you. So I'm going to set this on the mat. When I go to please select and cut, if I go into the spanner here, there's a cutter mount down here. Instead of having it on auto, just put it on 1 mil, because then it'll cut it in one go. What I found with Mylar is a little bit the same as grey board. If your mat isn't quite tacky enough, as it comes to do a second pass, it can be slightly off because you're forcing it. The plastic doesn't have any fibres for it to grip to, so it needs to be a really sticky mat. If you do it in one pass, which it will do with 1 mil set as your cutter mount, it's a doddle. and you can cut all your stencils out. So that's how you create a stencil in Canvas Workspace. Have a play around with all the different shapes, because there's some really super cool things that you can do with it. So watch the video back and just have a play around and see what you come up with. But you're basically creating your own cutting files now. And this machine that you bought is now creating tools for you to use in your craft room, which I think is super, super exciting. So I just want to give you a brief overview of what's on this USB. So there's a little bit of a story going on. So we were deciding what we wanted to do. Sorry, Andy, say that again. Yes. Unfortunately, I can't call you boss unless you're for the day off, but you can record the shows or watch on rewind. And you'll be able to watch the education all the time, won't you? So it'll be fine. And we've got loads and loads of stock, so you should be all right. Massive amount of stock. Right, so here's the thing. So we decided that we were going to do some different florals. Let me just get this organised and then I can show you. So we decided that we would have different pieces of foliage. So we'd do 6 different flowers. Let me just find them for you and then I can show you exactly what they are, because this was all organised this morning and now it's not anymore, because I've been messing about with it today. Right, so we decided that we would do 4, 5, 6. Right, so I wanted 6 sets of florals on here. So we decided that we were going to do a gerbera daisy, which is this one. Then we were going to do a sunflower, which is this one. Then we're doing a rose, which is this one. Then we're doing a peony, which is these like borders. Then we're doing this lovely, almost like an oval wreath with a lily. And then we were going to do a round wreath with the hydrangea. So those are the 6 different ones that are coming on your USB. But me being me, that couldn't just be. So what we did was we took the 6, so Lauren drew up 6 different compositions with the foliage. So we had the complete wreath, so forget the flower, we had the complete wreath here as a piece of foliage. We had these parts without the peonies in the middle as foliage elements. We had this as a complete foliage without the roses in the middle. We then had the sunflower corner without the flowers. We had all this foliage without the gerbera. And then we also had the whole circle wreath without the hydrangeas. So I suddenly went, what if we can put any flower in any foliage composition? And Lauren went, how do we do that then? So I went, well, we do it the way that we do it, where we divide and we add a shape in. So that's exactly what we've done. You'll get to hear more about this as we go through the education for it, but it's super exciting. So instead of just buying stencils, and there's nothing wrong with doing this, you know, there are companies out there that are doing really, really well with layered stencils, but you have to buy a layer for each, or a stencil for each layer. So sometimes you might end up with 10 or 11 stencils, and some of those stencils might just have like 3 little circles on for the center of a flower. Well, for me, that's a bit of a waste of plastic, to be fair. So we've done it slightly differently for ours. So what we've done is you will get a stencil that cuts out, let me just grab this and then you can see what I'm talking about. So you'll get a stencil that has all the foliage, and then I teach you how to put this solid in the middle of it. So this one would be with the roses, but you could put the solid of the sunflowers or the solid of the hydrangea or the solid of the peonies. You can do whichever one you want in here. So you'll then place this down, stencil spray from Cadence. I've got it on a happy hour deal, I think, on the Friday at 8 o'clock. And then you'll go through with your inks or your paints or whatever it is, whatever medium it is you want to use. I wouldn't recommend using texture paste with this because the stencils are quite fine. The Mylar's quite fine, but you could try it with all different mediums. Then what you will do is you will have another stencil, and you're cutting these yourself, and you'll take this stencil. So you'll take this one away, and then you will place this one over the top, and that will fit inside there perfectly, and you'll do your roses. Or you can do it another way, and you can cut the whole stencil in one and ink through it and just mask off. Now, I said this to Stephanie and she went, masking off, that means I've got to cut loads of stuff out. Actually, it doesn't. Because you're cutting your own stencils, you've got the waste left on your mat. So if you wanted to mask off that leaf and that leaf and that leaf and that leaf and that leaf to get to these, you just put the Mylar back in. So it's super, super, super cool. And then you also get the detail. So you get the detail of the foliage, which you then position back over the top. And I do it with the original stencil still in place. So for example, this line here is too long. But once I just do this bit, it works perfectly and it builds it up. So that's really cool. And then you've got the detail that goes on your roses as well. So I'm going to film all this for you tomorrow, which is very exciting. But how do we get it to emboss? Because this is the thing at the moment, isn't it? These 3D embossing folders, which are fabulous, I have to say. And we can't do a 3D embossing folder. We can't make that because the machine won't cut Mylar that's that dense. It's not about the thickness, it's about the density. And it would take you so long, and the chances of you getting that stencil clean is quite difficult. So what I did was I cut two out. So I actually put a square around it. And I positioned this, the whole thing in the middle, and I cut it out twice, and then I used a spray adhesive and I glued two together. And I'll show you the result. Now I've done it on white because white is notoriously difficult to see, but you can see on here that you get some sort of embossed detail. So with this, what you do is you take your stencil, you run it through your die cutting machine with the rubber embossing mat, and it will emboss the surface for you. So we're kind of doing that layer stencil, going back to the one that I did during lockdown. We're kind of doing this sort of thing like this, but we're cutting our own stencils. And we're taking 6 foliage compositions and 6 different florals, and you can mix and match. So you've got 36 options from one USB, which I think is super, super, super cool. And we will have the Mylar on the show as well, which is great because that's what we need. So go and dig out all those ink pads that you've got because we're going to use those as well, which is super exciting. But to be able to do this, and I'll just show you a few of the finished samples so that you can see a little bit more. I think it's going to be $39.99 for club members, I want to say, which is good. So it's just over £1. And yes, you've got to make your own stencils, but you're in control because, of course, then they're all resizable. So you can make them all bigger, or you can flip them and reverse them, and you can do all those different things. Or you could weld 2 together and make it that way. And then, just because we can, we broke all the stencil down. So you've got each leaf individually, and you've got the matte layer, the stencil layer, and the detail layer. So then you can start to create backgrounds with them, or you can start to make your own stencils with them. So it just gets better and better. So let me show you on 2 of these. You also, when you do what I'm going to teach you tomorrow, you can create your own cutting file that works perfectly. So it doesn't matter how you design your stencil, you can make a cutting file for it, which is fabulous. So you can then have it shaped. We've got some here where I've just added a couple of stamps in. I've used the stencil as a background on there. Again, using with the lily, some of these are embossed. So you've got congrats on your special day on there. Embossing one, doing one flat. So you've got all these opportunities to be able to make these fabulous cards, but really quickly and really simply. and you're cutting your own stencils, which is fabulous. So if you only want 2 stencils, you can position each part in a different place, so you're not spending a fortune on plastic that you're actually not using. And then we've got the shaped cards here, so using the shapes to create your cards, doing them in different colours, laying them out in different compositions. So it's a really, really cool, and actually it's really enjoyable. So instead of having like an extra stencil that put a darker layer in, I'm going to teach you how to blend your inks, which is really exciting as well. And I actually treated myself to every single little cube of Distress inks that I could find, because I can't buy just one set at a time. I have to have every colour. So I have to save up for it all before I can buy any of it, because I'm a nightmare. If there's a colour missing, it doesn't work in my head. So that's what's coming to you on Friday. Go and have a play around with Canvas Workspace. If you are a CM user and you usually tune into that class, it's going to be exactly the same as what we've just done, apart from the fact that when you're moving your apertures down, so when we're creating the triple aperture, each nudge on a CM machine is 1mm, so you'll nudge it 11 instead of 22, but apart from that, the class will be exactly the same. So I hope you can join me on Friday. I hope you find this as exciting as I do, because I think that's just brilliant, and it gives you loads and loads and loads of options. And it's going from something that I'd never seen before with paste. I'm sure it's been done somewhere in the world, but to now be able to do it with your inks as well. And we will be bringing this back, because I think this is really clever. I just need to find the right Mylar that you can cut your own and use it with paste. I'm just trying out different thicknesses and densities of Mylar at the moment. But I just think it's a really nice way of expanding what your ScanNCut does, because now, as I said earlier, your machine is now making tools for you. So thank you as ever for joining me, and I will hopefully, fingers crossed, see you on Friday. Just one more reminder of the deal before we go. We've got some fabulous cardstock, solid core, slightly textured, but really nice Christmas colours, but also nice masculine colours. And we will be doing masculine USB after we've done this one. I tell you, the list, it's just getting longer and longer and longer. But you pop one in your basket and you get the other colourway free. So that goes till the 4th of June at midnight. Have a fabulous week. Please join me for the weekend if you can, even if you're not buying it, just to get the ideas and inspiration. And I will see you all next month. Take care. Lots of love. Bye. If you want to see more from Highlight Crafts, make sure you click the like button. Subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below, and click the bell icon to receive notifications of all our future content. You can also click here to see our latest video, or click here to see more videos like this one.